Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to The Sanctuary. I'm your host, Professor C, and we're going to be doing some more A&P today. We're going to continue our journey through neurology today by taking the nervous system and ripping it apart and putting it into divisions. So let's check that out. So on the left side of your screen, we see a brain and all of its components and the spinal cord hanging down from it. And this would be the two components of the central nervous system, or the CNS, simply the brain and the spinal cord. And because of our previous discussions, we know that this is the control center of the nervous system. It's where integration, analysis, decision-making occurs. And quite frankly, it's pretty easy when you talk about central nervous system because you're already done with it. Now, everything else in the nervous system, and if we look over here, we can still see the brain. I'll put an X on it, and we can still see the spinal cord, this yellow thing hanging down. But all these nerves and nerve fibers that are coming out from the brain and the spinal cord are not considered to be central. They're part of the peripheral nervous system because they come out on the periphery of the central system. So this is the PNS, the peripheral system. And it's basically everything in the nervous system that's not the brain or the spinal cord. So cranial nerves, spinal nerves, what we call plexuses, which are these little tangles of nerves almost where I put this arrowhead. These are all part of the peripheral system, and their job is to carry information to and from the central system for analysis. So we can draw a little arrow like this and use conventions that we saw in previous talks. Remember that if you see something blue, we're going to call that sensory. I can put an S. And if we see something red, we're going to call that motor. And remember, we can also call sensory information afferent information that's flowing toward the central system. And when you talk about the motor outflow, we can call that efferent, meaning the information is moving away from the central system. So another way to look at it is like this. We have inflow via the PNS to the CNS. This is sensory. And we have outflow via the PNS from the CNS. This is called motor division. But let's get a little bit more into it. Sensory-wise, we could talk about a somatic fiber or somatic information versus visceral information. And again, we're still, if we're in the sensory branch, we're still going from something to the CNS inevitably. But if you are a somatic sensory fiber, we're taking information from the skin, bones, skeletal muscle, and joint tissue and sending that toward the CNS. If you are a visceral fiber, you're still sending information from somewhere, but now you're taking it from some sort of visceral organ like the heart or the lungs or the pancreas, so forth, and you're taking that information toward the CNS. To get to the motor branch, it's just the outflow. We're going to have transmission of impulses from the CNS to effectors. And remember, in this discussion, effectors will either refer to some type of muscle or some type of glandular tissue. But it doesn't end there. We can get more picky. We can take this motor outflow, this efferent, right, this information headed from the CNS to an effector, and we can break it apart into two different things. Notice those arrows are both red. There's no inflow coming in here. This is all motor. So we can talk about the word somatic versus autonomic. And the very simple difference here in these types of motor outflow is one of them you have control of, somatic, and one of them you don't have control of consciously. So somatic system is often referred to as the voluntary nervous system, or the voluntary branch of the motor division of the nervous system. And it is what allows you to raise your hand up and shake it in the air to get your friend's attention when you're at a crowd or something. You are in control of when your hand goes up, you are in control of when it waves back and forth, and you are in control of when it comes back down. That is motor outflow for sure, but it's the somatic motor outflow. If you want to talk about autonomic outflow, it's involuntary. You are not in control of it. Now we're still going to control muscles and glands, but here it's not skeletal muscles. Here it's smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and the glandular tissue. But it doesn't stop there. We can take this autonomic outflow, this automatic outflow, if you want to use that word, but don't call it the automatic nervous system. These branches of the, sometimes it's called the ANS, and we can put them in categories as well. There's one branch referred to as the sympathetic branch of the autonomic system, and there's another branch referred to as the parasympathetic branch. And we often have outflow to, say, the heart with both branches. So sympathetics is usually, as a rule, preparing the body for some sort of activity or mobilization where we're going to use energy. Sometimes you hear this called the fight or flight response, but I want to add the word fright in there too. So we have fight, flight, and fright. It doesn't have to be an actual threat. If it's something you're afraid of, maybe say you're going to take a test, and you're scared to take it, it's not actually going to harm you in any way. It's not going to cause you any tissue damage to take the exam, but you're afraid of what the outcome could be and how it could affect your life maybe, and so it causes those butterflies in the stomach or that unsettling feeling like you want to get up and just run around in circles. This is sympathetic autonomics. Parasympathetic is the opposite. If you want to think about this branch, it's about rest, digest, and repose. That is, think about eating a big meal, laying down on the couch, and watching a football game on the weekend. You want to get the body ready to conserve energy here, as opposed to the sympathetic branch that gets it ready for action. All right, hope you enjoyed that little talk on the divisions of the nervous system. Thanks for watching it if you did. Check out some other videos in my series if you want to learn more about some A&P, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Bye-bye.